What's going on, duelists? It's your boy Nick, bringing you today on the channel a combos and test hands video for my recently updated Ursarctic Ice Barrier profile for the post Rage of the Abyss format. For those of you new to the channel, welcome. My name is Nick. We do Yu-Gi-Oh content mainly focused around rogue and casual decks alike. If that's the kind of Yu-Gi-Oh content that you're interested in, then I would highly encourage you to subscribe to the channel. We are currently working our way to 2,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. So Ursarctic is obviously a deck that I've brought to the channel in the past, and it's a deck that personally I'm very fond of, despite a lot of people writing it off as a deck that isn't necessarily good and even called trash a lot of the times. But personally, I think this is the exact type of deck that is perfect for this channel. We pride ourselves on bringing you, casual and rogue decks, this being about as casual as it gets, but also fun. Because, as hard as Yu-Gi-Oh can be and as sweaty as it can get at times, I just like the game, and sometimes I just want to sit down and play a fun deck, which this certainly meets the bill. And when you combine Ursarctic with the help of Ice Barriers, including their new support that they recently got out of the Battles of Legends set, Terminal Revenge this year, the two archetypes actually mesh together pretty well and kind of shore up each other's weaknesses. So obviously I want to bring you guys combos and test hands so you guys can see. I profiled the deck about a few weeks ago now. A link in the description will be put down below. Check out the profile if you haven't seen it yet, because I'm not really going to go through that cards that much. You're just going to be comboing for the purposes of this video. But in the profile, I mentioned that night I was going to locals and I was taking the deck, and I did go. Now, a couple things to preface. It was a 5-round tournament. I didn't do very well. I didn't top, but I didn't do terrible either. I won 2 out of my 5 matches, which means I had a 3-2 record, which isn't great. But the decks that I lost to, I think, are decks that almost anybody would lose to. It was literally Runic Stun, Centurion, Azamina, and Kashtira Control with like main deck D-barrier type stuff, and shifter dot deck basically. Those are the 3 decks that I lost to. The 2 decks that I beat were Tenpai, actually, as crazy as that sounds, and a 60 card Paleozoic pile, which was a total grind. But obviously, it doesn't matter what deck you're playing. I'm pretty sure you're losing to Runic Stun most of the time because it's literally just floodgate dot deck. Very unfun to play against, between all the milling and the floodgates and stuff. You pretty much just deck out, which is really sad. The Centurion Azamina. Centurion is a deck that I feel is up and coming this format, really strong. Combined with the Azamina cards makes it even better. So obviously that deck brought all the smoke, and I didn't do very well against that strategy. Game 1 I didn't do well, but Game 2 of that match we actually did great. Tried to force the Game 3, but just couldn't. But it was a really good back and forth. I think we went like 6 or 7 turns that game, which was really wild. And then obviously Kashtira Control with like shifters. This deck has a hard time playing under shifter, unfortunately, like most decks do. And then cards like Unicorn and Fenrir are just so powerful, combined with cards, because I was D-barrier twice that game, and this is a synchro deck, which is you get D-barrier, you pretty much auto lose, unfortunately. But all things considered, I was pretty happy with how the deck performed for the most part. Outside of those floodgatey control, let's not play Yu-Gi-Oh today type decks. I think the deck did pretty well, especially in the matchups where I was facing against Tenpai. Obviously, cards like Lancia Dragon and the Septentrion were huge playmakers, or advocates for the reasons as to why I won those games against Tenpai. And the Paleo deck, I was just able to out-resource him over time. Really strong, especially post-side. I do play some pretty good stuff, but that's not why we're here. Despite me not having the greatest locals record, I still think this deck is a ton of fun, and it is a deck that I plan on bringing you guys for the live duel I want to do, showcasing this deck up against my Volcanic deck, which was also recently updated. So definitely want to stay tuned on the channel. Subscribe if you're not already. You don't want to miss that live duel. It's going to be a lot of fun. But let's get to the nitty-gritty here. We are here to see combos and test hands. So why don't we talk a little bit about what the Ice Barrier setup can actually provide, with Revealer being the main starter, obviously. So she can discard any card, and then she can special an Ice Barrier tuner from the deck. Very powerful effect. So why don't we go lead things off with a Revealer combo, showcasing what she can do plus a discard. So Revealer effect, pitch any card, doesn't matter. And you're gonna grab out of the deck. You have a few options. Assuming you're playing under the Furrowas, you can just go straight for the Georges. Yeah, they'll get a draw, and then with Georges and Revealer, you can just make the Lancia Dragon of the Ancestral Mountain. Yeah, they get 2 draws, but obviously that still plays pretty low to the ground, especially if we're talking about playing under Furrowas. I still think that's a pretty viable line. You don't give them too many draws, and you still make a pretty decent monster that, you know, is going to give your opponent a pretty hard time. However, if you're not playing under Furrowas, and assuming the Revealer does resolve, you're usually going to be going for a Hexa out of the deck. And then you're going to use Hexa's effect to Foolish Burial a level 3 or lower Ice Barrier, which you're usually going to send Mage. Remember that Hexa's level becomes the level of the monster you sent, so Hexa does become a level 2 here. And then Mage's effect will allow you to search for an Ice Barrier card. You can grab the Georges, or grab Medallion and use Medallion to grab Georges if you're trying to deck thin. Special the Georges with his own effect because you control Ice Barriers, and then Georges' effect on summon to bring out an Ice Barrier from the hand or grave that is level 5 or lower. So now that we're at this juncture here, you can do one of 2 things. You can go for the more low to the ground combo, but it guarantees you a better end board. Most of the time, it's less greedy. So you're going to take Revealer and Georges, and you're going to make the Lancia. Then off the Mage effect, you're going to tribute the Hexa to produce the 3 Ice Barrier tokens. Note that Mirror Mage, her level does become 5 in this scenario because she gains a level for each of the tokens summoned, the maximum amount being 3. You'll then go the level 5 Mage and one of the tokens to make a Coral Dragon, and then Coral, who's a level 6 tuner, plus the remaining 2 tokens, will actually get you into an Adamancipator Dragite, plus a draw off of the graveyard effect of the Coral. And that is pretty much your Ice Barrier combo. Now, the reason why we play it that way is because for those of you unaware, Ursarctic, whenever you use one of their effects, you are locked into this restriction of you are not able to summon monsters from the extra deck without a level, which means you're not able to make Exceeses or Links. So you're pretty much locked into like Fusions and Synchros, which is why we don't play cards like Bahamut or Toad or anything like that, because sometimes with the Ursarctic combo, you know, with the help of cards like Radiation, if we lead with the Ursarctic line first, because that's what we had access to, and we draw onto the Ice Barrier line later, we're already locked out of, you know, Links and Exceeses, so there's almost no point in playing them. So we built the deck with the notion in mind of constantly just playing with our Synchros only, and I think the combos are still pretty good despite that. So like I said, this is one of the Revealer line. You end on Lancia plus Dragite guaranteed, you know, assuming you're not getting disrupted, plus a draw for your troubles. And that started off of Revealer plus a discard, which I think is pretty good value, all things considered. However, if you want to do something else, let's rewind real quick. Let's bring us back to, you know, same startup, Revealer plus discard, into Hexa, Hexa for Mage, Mage for Georges, Georges bring back the Mage. Let's rewind back to this juncture here. Instead of going for that line, if you want to be a little bit more greedy, what you can do is go Revealer plus Hexa to make the Coral Dragon. Remember that Hexa's a level 2, so, you know, Revealer plus Hexa does make Coral in this scenario. And then you can go Mage, tribute the Georges, summon out the 3 tokens. Again, Mage will become a 5. And with the Coral Dragon plus the 3 tokens, you're going to make a level 9, which will be the Croca Dragon. And this is actually how you do the draw 4 combo, keeping in mind being respectful of the Ursarctic restriction, assuming you are already locked into cards with levels. Then you'll go Ravenous, followed by Coral effect. Coral draws 1, and then Ravenous will draw 3 additional cards since you use 3 non-tuners to make it, for a total of a draw 4, which is very strong. Now keep in mind, that's off of a single Revealer, and it's a lot more greedy, but the problem is that you're only ending on Ravenous plus Mage, unless you're drawing into more gas with the draws. But understand that, you know, if you started with the 5-card hand, you'd only be down Revealer in the discard. You still have 3 cards, plus the 4 you just drew, assuming this combo went off undisrupted. So you still have 7 cards left in hand to continue extending or continue playing with, potentially, which should, you know, get you into further But like I said, it's not guaranteed, because again, the draws could just be dead. Depending, you could draw into like non-engine, for example, in which case you're just passing on a Croco Dragon as your only disruption, and then a mage for follow-up, pretty much. But that's basically how the ice barriers work. So now what I want to show you guys is how they play into the Ursarctic setup. So I'm going to go ahead and pile shuffle the deck really quickly, and I will see you guys once the deck is all shuffled up. Alright, duelists, so I got the deck all shuffled up. We are going to go ahead and cut. That way you guys can see how this plays out. And we are going to go ahead and draw our 5-card starting hand. So we're going to have Ice Jade Ran Adrian, Ursarctic Megatannis, Ursarctic Megabilis, Molcharmy Perulia, and Ursarctic McPolar. So this is a pretty decent hand, all things considered, especially if we're going first. And even if we weren't, we have the Perulia, to potentially give us even more draws, assuming we're going second. But pretty awesome hand, really. No complaints here. So this is going to be more of an Ursarctic setup than an Ice Barrier one, obviously because we didn't draw Ice Barrier cards. But what we're going to do here is, and obviously you tailor the combo based on what you're coming across. Realistically, if your opponent like drops Furrowas, for example, you could just go Ran Adrian, send like the Perulia, and then Adrian summon, produce the token, and then with Adrian and the token make a Lancia, which is good. And under Furrowas, you wouldn't commit any harder than that. You just pass. But it still leaves you with like a body that's really strong. But assuming that we're not going to be playing into disruption, this is just to show you the potential of the combo. We're going to lead things off with McPolar here, tributing. Doesn't really matter who. I guess we tribute Megatannis in this case. And then we activate the effect of McPolar to search for an Ursarctic monster, which we're probably going to end up grabbing the Alpha Ursatron, who's always treated as an Ursarctic. If I could go ahead and just find that. There it is. Then, because we control an Ursarctic monster, we can activate the effect of Ursatron Alpha to special summon itself and search an Ursarctic spell trap. It's all one effect. Really great extender here. So we can use that to grab ourselves either a Departure or Radiation. If we grab the Radiation, though, we're going to have to sack our Adrian for the Billis play, and then that means that we don't get a guaranteed Lancia on the end board. But it's just a matter of preference. Now, if you do want the guaranteed Lancia, you're going to have to go for the Departure line. So it's more or less preference. Realistically, with Radiation, you get draws, and then you kind of hope that the draws get you back into some more gas. But I guess for the purposes of this, we're just going to go for... Let's not be greedy here. Even though it is always fun to like grab Radiation and start drawing every time you summon an Ursarctic, let's just grab the Departure. So we'll go Departure, pitch the Perulia. We don't need it anymore since we control cards. And then off of Departure, we're going to search for 2 Ursarctics. So why don't we grab another Mega Bear. And we'll grab a Minor Bear as well. So let's grab Megapolar. And then we're also going to grab Megatannis. The Ursarctics are just such a cool archetype. I know that they're very unconventional, but they're just so much fun. I mean, as sweaty as the game can be, sometimes you just want to play a fun deck, And Ursarctic just scratches that itch for me, so to speak. So now we're going to go one of the Mega Bears here, tributing the other Mega Bear, summoning itself out, and now we can actually go into the Ursarctic game plan with their level 1 synchros. So we can make Polari here, trigger the Polari to grab out their field spell, which is Big Dipper. Really cool field spell in my opinion. Hopefully you guys can see everything okay. And then we can now go Polari effects. We're going to use Dipper to mitigate the cost here by banishing one of our bears, which will be the McPolar. And then we'll revive one of our Mega Bears, which will be Megabilis. And then what we'll do here is we'll then go Polari plus Billis for one of our Ursarctic boss monsters, in this case being Septentrion if we're going first. Now, yes, we didn't make the Polar Star play, and that's because we just didn't have the means to. I'm sure if you really wanted to make Polar Star, then you would have needed to, instead of grabbing Mectanix, you should have grabbed another Mega Bear. And then you could have actually made the Polar Star, which might have been the better play, but, you know, we're just doing this off the cuff, just to give you an idea of what the combo could look like. But then you'd have a Septentrion made with Polar Star, which is probably better. So that was my bad for searching Mectanix there. I mean, hey, look, we do these unedited, all right? If I make a mistake, you guys know firsthand. But, you know, we still get the Septentrion here, obviously. And then we still have the Adrian plus the pitch. So we can then go Adrian here, pitching the water in our hand. Adrian, summon out the token, who is a level 3. And then Adrian plus the token pretty much guarantees you the Lancia Dragon, which is pretty strong. And then you still make Lancia plus Septentrion. And that was off of our starting hand. Against Septentrion, against certain decks, it's just a blowout. Especially in Ryziel format. You know, we're getting Ryziel at time of recording in about a month and a half. And they're a full-blown rank 4 Xyz deck. And if you don't know this, Septentrion absolutely hoses Xyz decks. Just any monster summoned from your from the extra deck without a level is negated. So it's pretty much a skill drain for Lynx and Xyz monsters. So come Ryziel format, Septentrion kind of gets an inherent buff, so to speak. And then obviously the Lancia Dragon is just cracked each time your opponent special summons up to twice per turn. We just get to summon Ice Barriers from pretty much anywhere and floodgate our opponent with whatever flavor of floodgate we're feeling, whichever one is obviously most impactful against their deck. But that just gives you a very small taste of you know, what the deck plays like. So why don't we do one more test hand before we wrap things up? I don't want to make this video too long. Yeah, well, let me go ahead and Pile Shuffle again, and then I will see you duelists shortly. Alright, so we're back with the deck after Pile Shuffling here. So we're going to do another test hand for you guys, and we are going to play this out like we are going first, obviously. Oh, and then I want to make sure that, you know, always got to cut the deck. That way you duelists know that this is completely unedited, and everything we do here is legitimate. So, got the deck here. We're going to draw our 5-card hand. So we have Departure, Ice Barrier, Wandering Titan of Tartarus, Medallion, and Triple Tactic Talents. So this is an interesting hand. It has both access to the Ice Barrier line and the Ursarctic line, which is really cool. Plus 2 really amazing discards. Departure requires a discard, and then obviously if we go Medallion for Revealer, Revealer needs a discard, and Ice Barrier is really powerful to pitch and plays really nicely with the Ursarctics because you can banish it to search any bear with the graveyard effect of this card. So really strong here. But one thing I do want to bring up is this card here, Wandering Titan of Tartarus. This is a card that is brand new out of Rage of the Abyss, and I'm playing it in this deck because, as you know, the Ursarctics are quick effects to summon during the main phase, whether it's mine or the opponent's. And they have to tribute level 7 or higher monsters to do so, to special themselves. And Tartarus is an amazing card to tribute for an Ursarctic, or an amazing card to discard, like for Departure or for Revealer effect, assuming we're going second. Because when this card is sent to the graveyard, except from the deck, he allows us to pitch any card in our hand to send any card on the field to the graveyard, non-target. So really cool card there. Obviously, if we're going first, it's not the greatest. I mean, it's just a discard fodder for either a bear effect or for any of your other cards that require a discard. But going second is really strong. So I'm main decking 2 of this and side decking a 3rd. For when we know we're going second, but really cool card. I've been messing with it. It actually came up during locals against the Paleo player on their turn. I was able to summon an Ursarctic by pitching the Tartarus. The Ursarctic I summoned was a Mega Bear, Mega Tannis. I flipped one of their monsters face down, and then the Tartarus was able to send one of their back row cards away, which was really cool. Nice disruption. But anyway, getting off topic here. And then we have Talents in the event that they did have a hand trap for us. We could punish them that way. So this hand is actually really strong in my opinion. So I guess it's just a matter of preference of what you want to grab. I guess we'll go Medallion first. See if they ash it or whatnot. We'll go Medallion, grab Revealer. And if it resolves, like I said, then fantastic. What we'll do then is let's go normal summon Revealer, and then Revealer effect pitch Ice Barrier. This is actually really nice because if they do hand trap Revealer, we could punish them with the Ice Barrier by banishing it, sending Georges, and then adding the Georges to hand. And then we can do special Georges, and through a hand trap on Revealer, we still can make Lancia, which is really strong in my opinion. So the opponent kind of hand loops themselves for one, and we still get to our boss. But again, we're playing this out assuming that everything is resolving. So we're just going to pitch the Ice Barrier to summon out a tuner, and we are going to go for the Hexa combo. If I could find it, there it is. Then we're going to go Hexa effect to send Mirror Mage, which is our only target, to the graveyard. Hexa's level becomes 2. Mage will trigger, searching us a Ice Barrier card. We'll grab Medallion just to deck thin, activate the Medallion, and then we'll use that second copy of Medallion to grab ourselves a copy of Georges. And then at this point here, we're going to special the Georges since we control an Ice Barrier, and then Georges effect will bring back the Mage. So pretty much like the combo I showed you guys earlier in the video. And we're still going to play this one low to the ground. I don't want to get greedy here. I'd rather go for the guaranteed setup as opposed to like trying to sack the opponent with the lucky draws. So we're just going to go Revealer plus the Georges for a Lancia. That way we can guarantee, you know, a body. And if they had Nibiru, this would be our 5th summon, actually. If they nib us here, they send the Lancia, triggers the Lancia. Lancia could float into an OG Trishula, and then we get to banish their nib and a card out of their hand for the trouble. And then obviously we could still follow up with our Ursarctic plays if that did occur, but just something to keep in mind. Then we're going to go Mage, sending Hexa, summoning out the 3 tokens. And then with the new level 5 Mage and the token, we are going to make a Coral Dragon, who is a 6 tuner. And then with the Coral, plus the remaining 2 tokens, we are going to go ahead and synchro summon our copy of Adamancipator Dragite. Really amazing synchro. And then use the graveyard effect of our Coral to go ahead and draw 1 card, which is just another copy of Departure. Kind of unfortunate, but hey, it is what it is. At least we can go Departure, pitch Departure now, which I think is exactly what we're going to do. And this will let us add 2 Ursarctics from the deck to our hand, of which we are going to add ourselves a copy of... What do we want? McPolar, obviously. And then I think we'll just grab a Mega Bear. So why don't we do Mega Polar here for this particular setup. This will go to the graveyard, and this is how our hand currently looks. What we're going to do now is we're going to go McPolar. How do we want to do this? I guess we'll go McPolar, tributing out the Tartarus. No effect on Tartarus, unless we're going second trying to break the board. And then Polar effect will activate, searching us in our Ursarctic here, of which we can grab. And now here's the thing, and this is part of the reason why I wish Alpha Ursatron was a level 8, like a Mega Bear with like the the level 8 tuner, because we could just special this, search a spell trap, and then we'd have access to Polari here. But if we do that, he's not a level 8 tuner, he's a level 7 non-tuner like the minor bears are, and there's nothing here that we can really make to get a lot of value off of. And we don't have any other Ursarctics in our graveyard yet, so like having him search Slider doesn't really give us much benefit. Although, correction, hold on. If we tributed Megapolar instead of Tartarus, so why don't we do that actually? Look at me. Again, making mistakes. This is what happens when you don't edit your videos. But I feel like, this gives you guys the real representation of what the deck is like, which I think is really fun. So we'll go Polar, tribute Megapolar to summon. Polar effect, search Alpha, special out the Alpha. We're going to search for our copy of Slider. This is the proper way to do this. Grab Ursarctic Slider, activate Slider, bringing back the Polar, and now we can actually make our Ursarctic synchro the Polari, activate the Polari to grab ourselves Big Dipper out of the out of the deck, which is their field spell. If I could find it, Jesus. All right, there it is. And now we can try to go. We'll have to just go Polari here, using Dipper, banishing the Polar in the graveyard to bring back a Mega Polar with Polari effect. We're mitigating the cost using Dipper here. That's why we banished the Polar. And then now what we can do is we can go into, again, our copy of like Septentrion, assuming we're going first. And this just, again, gives you an example of like how the two engines kind of work with one another. And now your end board is pretty stacked. I mean, Septentrion is just a Floodgate. Lancia is just really powerful. Dragite for the spell Trap Negate. You still have a Tartarus, which is nice because if they special summon, Septentrion searches an Ursarctic card. So we can grab something like Mega Tannis, and this is actually how we can pull off what I mentioned to you during the Paleozoic duel, where I had a Mega Bear in the hand, Tannis specifically, and on their turn I went Tannis, Tribute Tartarus, special Tannis, since we controlled another Ursarctic. Tannis will Book of Moon, one of their monsters, and then Tartarus will pitch a card to send a card they controlled at grave. Non-target, so really strong. It's like a double disrupt there. Then plus you still have the Dragite negate plus the Lancia to keep pressure on the opponent, and obviously as you shut them down, you pretty much just have lethal guaranteed on the subsequent turn. So that's gonna wrap up my combos and test hands video for my Ursarctic Ice Barrier deck. Let me know down in the comments below what you duelists think of the deck. Like I said, not the most competitive deck out there, but it is a lot of fun to play, and it actually works pretty well, all things considered. It is a 60 card deck. The only thing that I've changed actually since the profile, which I'll bring up now, is instead of playing 2 copies of Ursarctic Radiation, I actually cut Radiation to a one of, and in the spare slot, I decided to play a single copy of Called by the Grave, just to give the deck an additional non-engine piece. So Radiation is just a one of, and the reason for that is because, again, because we're playing Ice Barrier Ursarctic, it's not a pure Ursarctic deck. Sometimes drawing this in a handful of Ice Barriers, it feels like a brick because it doesn't do anything for you. This is only really good in the hands that produce a lot of bears. So cutting it down to 1, because it is searchable through the Ursatron Alpha anyway, so you pretty much just grab it when you need it, and you can have better control over, you know, when you want to get the draws, and it makes the deck a little bit more consistent. Again, we just replace it with a Called By, which is just another piece of non-engine to help force your combos through and whatnot. So that's really the only deck change that I've done since the profile. But like I said, stay tuned. You don't want to miss the live duel between this deck and my Volcanic list. Also, I know I just recently updated the insect deck profile. Expect the combos and test hands for that this weekend, because I know you duelists really like that bug deck, especially with the new support from Rage, so I'm sure you duelists want to see that as well. Plus, not to mention, I will be bringing you guys a live duel for the insect deck as well, facing off against the Ursarctic list you see here. In addition to the Volcanic live duel, I'm bringing you duelists 2 live duels. Ursarctic versus Volcanic, and Ursarctic versus the insect pile that I recently uploaded. So definitely want to make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss out on those uploads. And all things being said, this is Nick hitting that end phase. Peace.